Welcome, and thank you for viewing this video on how to perform person search in Connections. This video is for local districts that have signed a Memorandum of Understanding, or MOU, with New York State OCFS and can now designate workers who already have some experience with the Connections person search function to do first-level reviews of database checks. In order for your district to continue doing first-level reviews, it is important to make sure the most recent MOU update is entered in. Connections houses over 2 million names in its database. Names are added to the database when an intake report is taken. The name and, if known, date of birth of the abused or maltreated child, the alleged subjects, and other household members are entered in Connections and can be updated by the local Child Protective Services as more demographic information is gathered during their investigation. The MOU that your agency signed allows you to do your own first-level review of database checks as required by Section 424A of the Social Services Law. A first-level review means you can search the applicant or a person age 18 or older living in the home using the Connections phonetic person search. This will determine if the individual was named in a report of child abuse or maltreatment. In order to conduct a first-level review, you should already have some familiarity with the Connections person search functionality. You probably already know the mechanics of beginning a name search. That is, by logging into Connections and clicking on the person icon on the Connections toolbar, you can initiate a person search. Let's take a closer look at the person search. In the first-level review, if the person for whom you're searching is not found, no further action is necessary. On the other hand, if the person is found in the Connections database, the information on the LDSS 3370 must be entered in the online clearance system and electronically sent to the State Central Register, or SCR, for a second-level review. This second review by the SCR is required regardless of whether the report is indicated, unfounded, or under investigation, and regardless of the role of the individual in the report. Deciding whether the person for whom you're searching is a match to the search results is not always easy. Connections has no unique identifiers, such as a social security number, on which to search. Adding to the complexity is the fact that people who call the Child Abuse and Maltreatment Hotline may not always know the exact spelling of a family name, an individual's date of birth, or even their age. Also, families are not always cooperative with local child protective services. This sometimes prevents CPS from being able to obtain and update missing or inaccurate demographics in the database. Because the data is not always as precise as we would like, your understanding of the entire process and your attention to detail at every step in the process is critical. There are no hard and fast rules on how to analyze the search results. It's something you get the hang of with practice. Let's explore this process further. Begin performing a person search by selecting the person search icon on the Connections toolbar. The person search window will appear. The top section of the person search window allows you to enter the person information and select the search criteria. The bottom section is where the possible results are returned for your viewing. There are 3 types of searches available on this window: phonetic name, phonetic address, and exact. We will discuss each of these types of search in more detail. Phonetic searches will bring back similar matches to allow for the most thorough search of the database. A phonetic name search is automatically in the drop-down menu and is the default search. Also, each record returned in a phonetic name search is assigned a score. Thus, the most relevant records are displayed first. Because of these features, the phonetic name search should be your primary search tool. Here are some additional features of phonetic name search. First name, middle and last name, gender, and date of birth or age can be used in a phonetic search. A phonetic search returns all records with names that are phonetically similar to the searched name. It will not exclude a result because gender does not match. Only the score will be affected, and therefore where the result falls on the list. The record will appear lower because it is getting a lower score. Let's move on to phonetic address search. A phonetic address search will search on the street name, city, county, and zip code. This will return all records with street names that are phonetically similar to the street entered. Since our population is very mobile, do not depend solely on an address search. Address searches are especially helpful if the person's name is very common. It may help you rule in or rule out certain search results. However, it is still best practice to use a phonetic name search first. The third search type is an exact search. With this search, you can search several different criteria. These are name, street name, WMS client ID number or SIN, or person ID as assigned in connections. An exact search returns matches that exactly match the information provided as search criteria. As we discussed earlier, Social Security numbers are not used in connections, and the LDSS 3370 database check will not have a WMS client ID number or connections person ID. Because these search items are not generally available, and often callers reporting abuse or maltreatment do not always know the exact spelling of a name or address, an exact search is not recommended. Exact searches can miss matches that vary even slightly in name or street address. Phonetic searches return much more comprehensive results. Now, let's take a step-by-step look at doing a phonetic name search. Before starting any search, it is important to remember that the accuracy of your input is critical. Data entry errors in any of the search fields could prevent the search subject from being found on the database, thereby defeating the purpose of doing the search. Enter a name into the first name and last name fields. To perform the search, click on the Search button that is on the lower left side of the window. The Person Search List results will appear. The Person Search window displays the Person Search List with name, date of birth, sex, person ID, county, street, city, ethnicity, Social Security number, and primary name. If you scroll to the right, you'll also see columns that show match, score, and T. The field that has been labeled T is for type of date of birth. This field will have either an E, A, or blank value in it. An E indicates an estimated date of birth. Due to conversion of data early on, these tend not to be correct and should not be considered when ruling results in or out. An A indicates an approximate date of birth. These are considered when scoring search results. And a blank in the type field means that the date of birth displayed is the exact date of birth. The types of date of birth are factors to be considered when evaluating individuals. To determine if the results you are looking at are a match, you need to look at a combination of several factors, including name, date of birth or age, gender, address, and case composition. There is no limit on the number of results returned. The system assigns each result a score so that exact matches to the name entered will be displayed first. Phonetically similar matches will come next and will be ranked as to how closely they match the entered information. There is no cutoff score. Instead, you will be required to use your judgment as to how far you will look down the list for matches. A good rule of thumb is to review the names until the names returned no longer resemble the individual being searched. If, after going through all of the steps, you're not sure if a result on the list is a match, you should always send the database check to the SCR. But if you're in doubt, check it out by digging deeper. Let's take a look at a way to do this using the Case List window. First, you have now selected a possible match and need to look further to see if this individual is indeed a match to the applicant you entered. Start by selecting the individual that you want to view to see if they're a match. Then select the Case List button. The Case List window appears. The case list is a comprehensive list of all the cases in which a person with this person ID is known. The first column indicates which cases are sensitive cases by displaying an exclamation mark. Sensitive cases can only be reviewed by a supervisor. If you need to look at a sensitive case, you will need to see your supervisor. Next, you can see the status of the case name, case ID, and case type. The case types can be designated as FAD for foster care adoption. These are not CPS cases. SVC for cases where the family is or was receiving services. These can be FSS or CPS cases. And CPS for cases where the family currently has CPS involvement. Click on a case name or number line to highlight it. This enables the buttons on the case list window. Now you can navigate to the case composition window by clicking the Comp button. Oftentimes, by comparing the composition of this case with the family composition listed on the LDSS 3370, you can rule in or rule out a possible match. Remember, someone may have more than one person ID in the database. It may be necessary to look into several possible matches for a person for whom you're searching. Hyphenated names and multiple last names will be returned. When entering hyphenated names, 3 separate searches should be performed. Enter both parts of the name including the hyphen, enter the first part of the last name only, enter the second part of the last name only. As discussed earlier, information given at the point of intake may be limited or incomplete, and executing these different searches will improve the chances of finding a match. Once you find a match on the database, you must send the information on the LDSS 3370 to the SCR using the online clearance system, regardless of the case type, whether the report is indicated, unfounded, or under investigation, and the role of the applicant or person being checked in the case. It is the SCR's responsibility to do a second-level review to determine if the person is a hit. You cannot assume the person is a hit or a no-hit for the purposes of employment, certification, or approval until you receive an automated do or do not response letter from the SCR. Finally, let's review the confidentiality policies associated with connections and case record access. It is extremely important that you adhere to the confidentiality of information at all times, and especially when searching names in the connections database. The integrity of New York State's mission is built on strict confidentiality. It is essential that the requirements of the law and our internal practice that leads to compliance with the law be supported and maintained at all times. Under no circumstances should you at any time cross-reference or search your own name, that of any colleague, friend, family member, or public figure. To do so would be a violation of the confidentiality law. Misuse of connections, including the initiation of name searches not directly related to your duties conducting first-level reviews, will not be tolerated. As a regular business practice, the connection system maintains an audit trail of all user activity. Accessing cases not related to your job duties under first-level review could result in severe consequences. The integrity of our CPS system and the safety of children and families in New York State count on your dedication and professionalism. Unprofessional behavior should never be an issue, and your continued good practice is essential and appreciated.